Hi, everybody. Welcome back. Okay, so this is finally part 2 of my UFO ET disclosure chat. I will maybe have to do part 3 if I get cut off here at this 15-minute point. And I don't want to go on and on about this for too long. I want to, first of all, recap and let you guys know, though, I do have mixed feelings about disclosure. See, there is a part of me that would love to see it happen. But there's another part of me that really doesn't think it's a good idea. I pretty much summed it up in the last talk. I do only come to tentative conclusions about all this, and yes, talking about this really triggers me. That's why it took me 3 weeks to get back up on it. I've got a lot I actually want to say that I'm not sure I really should at this point. So this may end up stretching on into a series. I don't know. Maybe I'll end up deconstructing Steven Greer at some point. For those of you who might be confused or bowled over, I'll tell you what I think and why. But I don't want to go, I want to get to other things here. And as I said in my last talk, I think Steven Greer is very clever. I think I'm totally suspicious of him, and I do think he's making a really disgustingly ridiculous assumptions, including the assumption that all extraterrestrials are good and that there is no threat from them. I think that that's ridiculous, just as I think people who think they're all demons and they're all a threat or they're all bad, whatever the narrative, every time the narrative is polarized to all good or bad, I gotta call bullshit. Okay? So one of the things, though, that I think Steven Greer does make a good point about, because he does tell a lot of truth. Two things. One is there's a breakaway civilization of madmen and women who are technologically far more advanced, and he claims, that they're shooting extraterrestrial craft down. But I think that's BS, okay? And he says they've back engineered this technology. So according to him, all of the ETs coming in are good. They get shot down by humans who've been back engineering their technology and attacking them, but they seem to be vulnerable to it. It just, none of it adds up, okay? In my opinion, it's more of ETs control a lot of what's going on with the deep black ops stuff, okay? There's trillions missing from the Pentagon, and Steven Greer is right. They are robber barons, and they are completely doing a lot of stuff underground that is naughty, okay? And yes, I do think a lot of people are, how much of this whole ET thing is really ETs, how much of it is human hallucination, and how much of it is human experimentation? That's a good question, and one I've had to ask when I've been dealing with my own contact. And if you listen to my talk 5 years ago about the gray aliens, I pretty much talk about why I don't think this is humans doing this to me. And believe me, I've tried to root it out. I have tested this contact, and a lot has happened in the 5 years since I made those talks that I don't talk about. Okay? And I set up an algorithm to communicate and all of it. I'm not a dumbass. You can think I am if you want to. I'm just a little YouTuber on my rinky-dink channel talking about disclosure, and ain't hardly anybody going to listen to me, and I'm laughing. Okay? I've become to a very zen point. I don't give a shit about Steven Greer. Go listen to him. I think if you're interested in this subject, you really should. So another thing that he's correct about is interdimensional beings versus extraterrestrial beings. He talks about how all interstellar beings have to be hyperdimensional to have gotten here. And I agree with that. They have to have hyperdimensional access and awareness, right? But not all hyperdimensional beings are extraterrestrials. Oh, see, this is where I think disclosure would also get very messy, is like, well, are there plasma-based beings, as we've supposed, on our Earth? And what are what other dimensional beings are happening on our planet? And what is there's so much that is unknown the mainstream, okay? And so disclosure, maybe I'm wrong, maybe disclosure could end up being a good thing, even if they tried to use it to further enslave and control the population. I don't know. I could be wrong about any of this, and this again is why I have mixed feelings. And maybe the shock and awe would end up being worth it. Maybe we could avoid real World War III. Maybe we could avoid economic collapse. Now, I found this the other day, and I had to laugh because this is a card from the Illuminati card deck. For those of you who don't know, the Illuminati cards were created back in the 90s, early 90s, by a man who ended up getting raided by the FBI, and then he sued the FBI and he won for like $50,000. Quite an interesting tale about these cards, and they have all the conspiracies in them, okay? They're hilarious, and some of them are actually almost prophetic, really. And you know, this one I find interesting because I think that you know, when we talk about the issue of the Illuminati, I think a lot of the pro-disclosure people just want the aliens to help us get these oppressive humans out of power. Let's, you know, let's free up some of this economic flow already to the bottom of the pyramid, right? And if you listen to people like Catherine Austin Fitts, who are pretty grounded in the financials and following the money, and she also talks about a breakaway civilization, and artificial intelligence. You know, even if you think some of that material is out there, a lot of it's really actually quite verifiable. And when you follow the money, it gets real interesting. And so I think the only reason the Illuminati are winning, like, you know, Charlie Sheen kind of winning, high on the hog, is because of the dollar sign here. I think, you know, then we have the issue of, okay, our oceans are filled with plastic. We've got all this environmental collapse happening. It's really not looking good on some fronts, guys. And it's not just climate change. And even though they try to misdirect everybody to climate change all the time, you know, there's people who are trying to get together technology to clean up the plastic in our oceans. And let me tell you something, they get piddly funding compared to Silicon Valley, because everybody seems to want to plug into their computer and into their little virtual reality BS world instead of facing reality and the hard, cold facts. So what would happen if, you know, the lights really did go out? What would you do without your electricity and your internet? What if they send us back to the Stone Age? All this kind of stuff will be top priority, I guess, maybe then. But maybe disclosure could actually wake people up. I don't know. My feeling, though, is that I'm right about what I said in my last talk about this in that part 1. I think it would be a disaster, and I think it would be used to further control and enslave. Now, there's some things that gray aliens have told me about artificial intelligence that I'm going to put into another video coming up here. Hopefully that I'll get actually done this week. But, you know, I think all of this kind of relates. And so I don't want people to just take my point of view and think that that's gospel. But I've been thinking about all of this for a really, really, really long time now. And, you know, I've listened to all kinds of sources about UFOs and aliens for years now. And I think a lot of people mean well, but like I said, they're living in some kind of pipe dream about this kind of stuff. And so that is one thing I do like about Steven Greer, is he's talking about all this suppressed technology that could get us away from oil, and that's a real hook for people. That gives him credibility in all kinds of people's mind. And so again, like I'm just like, whatever, I don't care who comes out there and disinforms. People, it's the public that is the issue. It's the fact that general public is filled with people who don't want to take personal responsibility, and who who fall for the stupidest shit because they're in an escapist mode. We're in a real danger with this transhuman movement, and I don't think people really understand like how far it's getting. So when you have, you know, this percentage of humanity that are very much, that own all the resources. I mean, they do. They own the massive wealth. They've really got a system. The system is really, really rigged, and you know, they've got some real pernicious behavior going on and abuses. You have to imagine what it looks like from the outside. It looks like we're a planet full of bully enablers. And I think that's the truth, unfortunately. And I mean, it's like, as an individual, all you can do is do for yourself. You know, I wish that people would, when it comes to this subject, realize there was a whole life and a whole world that went on before the internet. And you know, a lot of people are seeking all this truth in other videos and articles on the internet. All you're going to get is portrayals. You know, I think any individual who wants to find out the truth of all this stuff can get really far on their own if they're true, if they're very sincere, and if they're willing to actually do other kind of work. And some of that work does involve, you know, accessing your own interdimensionality. So it's like, I just think that disclosure is too soon would be a disaster, and that it's not about hiding it from the public. It's more about informing people who are awake and who are interested, who have an awakened interest in all this, and then let them and their curiosity take them down their personal journey. And I think a lot of us will come to a consensus on a lot of these things if we're honest with ourselves. Because I don't know about you, but I think all of us agree we need a human-friendly system. I mean, what a novel idea that is. And to go from this manufactured scarcity into a human-friendly system, it might not happen unless something as big as disclosure happens. So, you know, I guess I'm just accepting that I don't have control over all this, and I'm glad it's not my decision to make, because I just think there's a lot of variables. Okay, so anyway, yeah, the idea of getting assistance from these outsiders, I just don't think it needs to be a public display. I think that, you know, I know that some of these beings are disgusted with what's going on and what their own kind are doing, just like I'm disgusted with what my own humankind are doing too. I don't like the way Monsanto treats the plants and the animals. Just like, you know, I think there's some of these beings don't like the way that their fellow kind have been treating us. And I think they do see us in a similar way. A good analogy for it, the way they see us, is that it's similar to the way that we see animals. And humans do all kinds of things to animals, and it ranges from, you know, treating them really well and loving them, and using them in factory farming, and genetically messing with and modifying them. You see? So if you think about it, maybe we're seeing the way we see the animals, really. And so the other thing I wanted to say is, you know, I've been at this for over 20 years. I don't care about Roswell and Area 51. I think there's so much that's just there to distract conspiracy theorists, and that's that. And it's like, to me, I think that when you cut down to it, really, like, any honest extraterrestrials wouldn't want to traumatize the whole population. They wouldn't want to rescue us, because they would want us to learn how to start taking care of ourselves and not, you know, being such easy prey. But it's like, again, if the majority of humanity wants this kind of corporate slave system that's emerging, that's what the majority of humanity is going to get. And so I really think we have an alien presence that's been manipulating, and they've been using the elite of this planet for their AI agenda. And I think then you have other aliens who would like to assist, but it's very difficult for them to do so. That's kind of my takeaway from all of this. Anyway, I'm already getting cut off here. I'll talk soon again, guys.